Thank you, friend. Shabbat shalom, greetings to you all. Well, we have kind of been alternating between Indian summer and full force fall. And I certainly hope those of you in Canada had a fantastic Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for. Wouldn't it be great if we made a part of everyday Thanksgiving? I can't help but feel that if we expressed a little gratitude every day, we would all feel a little better. If you're an atheist, or a deist, or an anything in betweenist, then express some gratitude to a friend, a coworker, a loved one, a pet, yourself. How often do you tell the people in your life that you're grateful for them? How often do you tell yourself? And it is appropriate that we give thanks, because that is the first thing that Noah does upon exiting the ark in this week's episode. He makes the Thanksgiving sacrifice. And for my friends south of the 49th, I hope you all had an awesome Columbus Day. A pioneer who many believe was actually a Marranos, one of the Jews forced to convert and was seeking a new home away from the Spanish Inquisition, and whose voyage took place when the Jews were ordered to leave. Now, I have sailed on the ocean. In fact, I've sailed on all the oceans. And I think of those little ships at the mercy of the waves. Wow, how did they do it? Wooden ships on the water, very free and easy. You know the way it's supposed to be. And this week we read about someone else who we picture in a wooden ship, made from gopher wood. Now this week we finished the first part of Genesis, the cosmic, the primeval, the great story of the flood. Perhaps the one story found in more cultural tales than any other. All the well springs of the great deep burst, and the casements of the heavens opened. Now the Hebrew word represented by casements is arubot. It's a rare term occurring only twice elsewhere in the Bible, and it clearly means window. Now, I've said before, look to the words, my friend. They tell us so much. Now, we know about the 40 days of rain that's coming. Friends, this was not just rain. We talked last week about creation of the firmament above the earth and the firmament below. Picture the world as an object surrounded by a bubble. And outside the bubble is water everywhere. And the windows open above, and there are trapdoors below that open, and both allow the water to pour in from above and below. Now, we recently witnessed the horrific flooding in South Carolina. Can you imagine water rising to the point that a river rises to the front door level of a house? How about the seas and oceans as they rise to cover the highest mountains? It's inconceivable. It's unbelievable. It's strange but true. It's inconceivable. It could happen to you. You go north, you go south, just like bait in a fish's mouth. Must be living in the shadow of some kind of evil star. It's unbelievable it would get this far. Now, as you know, each parsha or part or section of the Torah has a name. And there are very few parts of the Bible which are named for individuals. Joseph, about whom there is more written than almost anyone, did not get a parsha name for himself. The great prophet and lawgiver Moses did not get one. Abraham, the progenitor of the rest of the book, did not even get one. So I think it's really cool to share a name with one of the few that does. And friends, I can only think of three. Chaya Sarah, about Sarah's life, a name for the first of the matriarchs. Jethro, not for the Beverly Hillbillies, but for Moses' father-in-law, a great monotheist and pragmatist. And Noah, the great antediluvian savior of humanity, and the one name almost everyone knows. The first vintner, and if there were a biblical Cheers, then everyone would know his name. And certainly it's much easier to say than the Sumerian version, which was Utnapishtim, and whose story's been told in just about every culture the world over. Well, for all you Noahs out there, this is Noah, a 10th generation human. He's told by God to build an ark and to house animals on it because the world is about to be destroyed. After all, in this short span of time, God did not think it was quite as good as it was before. And we think of Noah and his ship of animals floating along till the water subsides. Except, my friends, it was not a ship. It was a tabah. Now, we call it an ark, and we think of a boat. But it was a box, rudderless, completely at the mercy of the water. The Hebrew tabah means a box. It has long been translated as ark, which is actually from an old English word for box. And because ark is so old an English word, which people actually no longer even use, And because the story is so famous, people simply frequently think that the word really means boat. And so your language and history lesson for the week is, there are two words for arks in the Torah. Tabah, a box, and Aharon, used for the box that contains the tablets of the Ten Commandments. And we call that an ark. An ark is still an appropriate translation for that container because people know what it is, and they wouldn't confuse it with a boat. And because that word is actually still used for the box that contains the scrolls of the Torah in synagogues to this day. And we have here Tabah, used only twice, and for similar purposes. Once for Noah, and once for the baby Moses. And no one thinks of Moses in anything resembling a boat. But it's not a boat in the flood story. Now, in one of the two integrated stories, its measurements are rectangular and they're given, and it has no rudder, sail, oars, or steering ability. In the other, like I said, its measurements are simply just not given at all. Now, the same is true of the box, the Tabah, in which the baby Moses is placed in Exodus 2:3. And as I've said, these are the only two objects called Tabah in the Hebrew Bible, and they both simply float on water and are at the mercy of the current. Now, I continue using the word ark so as not to distract anyone from the flow of the story. We immediately project a picture of a boat in our mind's eye when we think of Noah. Now, for many, the story of Noah is the first story of faith. He put complete faith in the word that came to him. And when you think of his going into a floating box, which he could not control in any way, shape, or form, it's pretty incredible. And for those who still toy with faith, it is perhaps a story of trust. And one of the great things which Noah did teach us, via faith or trust, or whatever else you want to view, is that who you are is the sum of your choices. But it's also a story that tells us a lot about God, his likes, dislikes. We start to get an even more anthropomorphic picture forming. God comes to Noah and gives him instructions for construction. Sophisticated in some ways. After all, it has windows and is multi-leveled. Genesis 6:15. And this is how you shall make it. 300 cubits the length of the ark, 50 cubits its width, and 30 cubits its height. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from the top, and you shall make the ark's entrance in its side. You shall make lower, second, and third stories for it. I'm bringing the flood, water on the earth, to destroy all flesh, in which the breath of life from under the skies. Now, I've always wondered, why not just man? After all, it is man that God says he regrets creating. Why animals too? After all, fish were not included in this. Only those that breathe air. So was it because the breath of God, the Ruach, which was in man and animals, that all those had to perish? Was it because from the breath of God comes consciousness? Now we get a clue because in Genesis 7:22 we read, everything that had the breathing spirit of life in its nostrils, everything that was on the ground died. So there is a direct connection between God's breath and what has to die. And for those who notice, Genesis 7 begins the second flood story, beautifully worked in as if only one story were being told. Of all the pure animals, take 7 pair, man and his woman. And of the animals that are not pure, 2, man and his woman. And so, my friends, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, on this day, all the fountains of the great deep were split open, and the apertures of the sky were opened. Now, one must have a picture of the structure of the universe that is described in Genesis 1 in order to comprehend the significance of the destruction that is narrated in the flood story. The creation account pictures a clear firmament or space holding back the waters that are above the firmament and those that are below. Now the narrative reports that all the fountains of the great deep were split open, and the apertures of the skies were open. The cosmic waters are able to spill in from above and below, filling the habitable bubble. And I'm sure it was like the end of the world. And I'm sure you will notice that the surge of waters from the great deep below and from the heavens above is, of course, a striking reversal of the second day of creation, when the vault was erected to divide the waters above from the waters below. I saw thousands who could have overcome the darkness. For the love of a lousy buck, I've watched them die. Stick around now, we're not through. Don't look for me, I'll see you when the night comes falling from the sky. So friends, I keep telling you, there are two of this story and two of that story, so how do you know which text or which story you're reading? Well, mostly you actually need to see the Hebrew. But sometimes, like in this story, there is a shift from rain to casements opening, from 2 of every animal to 7 pair of every pure animal. And pure is not about kashrut rules. It's about what sacrifices will be pleasing to God. There are fantastic clues in the biblical wording that scream at you to take a closer look. Well, the water stops, the tabak comes to rest, the raven and the doves are released over a period of time to determine if it is safe. When it is, everything disembarks. Noah makes a sacrifice, and we read, "And the Lord smelled the pleasant smell. And God said to his heart, I won't curse the ground on account of humankind again, because the inclination of the human heart is bad from their youth. And I won't strike all the living again as I have done." Wow! Looks like we caught God in a good mood after the sacrifice. Otherwise, maybe we wouldn't be here. And after the sacrifice, man is now allowed to eat meat. Before the flood, he was a vegetarian. Now, the flood event concludes with a contract between the deity and humans, a covenant. Now, the Noahic covenant is the first of 4 major covenants. The Noahic covenant promises the security of the cosmos. The Abrahamic covenant, which we're going to read about later, promises the land to Abraham's descendants. And it makes the Lord their God. The Mosaic covenant in Exodus promises well-being in the promised land, and the Davidic covenant promises kingship over Jerusalem and Judah to David and his descendants. Now, Noah's is evidenced by the statement from God, "I've put my rainbow in the clouds, and it will become a covenant sign between me and the earth." Pretty hard to miss, and it is one-sided. Only God can fulfill this one. Abraham's is by circumcision. Now, this too can only be evidenced, but by man's fulfillment of it. But don't forget the suggestion about circumcision of the heart, where it fits in. The Mosaic covenant is by the word of both God and man via promises that each make, and evidenced by that strange list of blessings and curses we're going to read about. And the Davidic is by God's words only, so you simply have to trust in it. And the Parsha ends with the shift to the Tower of Babel story, which is actually a story about rebellion. And I'm not going to discuss it at this time, but the point to it is God disperses them and gives them languages that make them less intelligible to one another and thereby less united. And we have been pretty unintelligible ever since. Now, the story thus prepares the way for a shift in the narrative, away from dealing with the fate of the species and the universe. And instead, it begins the focus to individuals. And just so you won't think that there are not controversies in just about every parsha in the Torah, God says in Genesis 11:7, "Come on, let's go down and babble their language there, so that one won't understand another's language." There is that confusion about the plural. Let us go down. Friends, as we enter into the story of Abraham and the patriarchs, in 2 short weeks we've completed the cosmic nature of creation, and we leave the primeval for a completely different type of book. But never forget, this book begins with the God of everything and everyone, and that God never changes. There is only one God, and God is everyone's. Friends, you could spend years just on these 2 parshas. Now let's take a minute and send healing energy out to those in need of help, in need of healing, in need of goodwill, in need of recovery, in need of love. And it is okay to include yourself in the list if you need any of those things. So please never hesitate to send healing out to anyone you know in need. And friends, this is a great time to remember that it is not just man that suffered in the flood. All of God's creatures did. And the Noah Parsha is the perfect time for a universal service in remembrance of all who have lost a beloved pet at one time or another. We have been sustained, protected, and nurtured by the life of our beloved companion who has been taken from us. The ragged tear which death has rent in the fabric of our lives cannot be mended. Yet love is as strong as death, and the bonds of love know no boundaries. We still meet, we still love. not in the world of physical reality, then in the gentler world of memory and dreams. For Alex, for Paul, for Martin, and all of you who've lost a dog. For Wilson, for Zero, for Monty, for Cleo, for Shakespeare, for Chinook, for Tsitsi, for Lucky, for Callie, Brittany, for all our friends who gave us unconditional love. This is for you. Nearer to the earth's heart, listening to its sounds, inhaling its fragrance. Dogs know this world in a way we never will. Stranded between time gone and time emerging. We seldom manage to be where we are, but they are always looking out from the here and now. May we learn from our beloved pets to free our senses, leave our locked minds, learn how to play with abandon, and feel the earth breathing with us. And friends, in Ecclesiastes 3:19, we're reminded that which befalls the children of humans also befalls our precious pets. As the one dies, so does the other. And both have the same life breath. Both go to the same place, both came from dust, and both return. And for any and all of you who have ever lost any pet, here's a parting prayer for all of you. Having lost my beloved friend Wilson last week, I will use his name. But as I say it, please say the name of any pet you've ever lost. Dear Lord, please open your gates to come escort Wilson across the Rainbow Bridge. Assign him to a place of honor, for he has been a faithful friend and has always done his best to please. Bless the hands that send him to you, for they are doing so in love and trust. Grant me the strength not to dwell on my loss. Help me remember the details of his life with the love he has shown me, and grant me the courage to honor him by sharing those memories with others. Let Wilson remember me as well, and let him know that I will always love him. And when it is time to enter into paradise, please allow Wilson to accompany those who will bring me home. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of his companionship and for the time we've had together. And thank you, God, for granting me the strength to give him to you now. Amen. The world is sacred, my friends, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this ride together. Men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Ask questions. Don't take because as an answer. See what lies in front of you and break free of the dogma. Change your way of thinking. Love your pets. Sheepdog, standing in the rain. Bullfrog, doing it again. Some kind of happiness is measured out in miles. What makes you think you're something special when you smile? You can talk to me. When you're lonely, you can talk to me. Talk to your pets, my friends. They love everything you have to say. Thank you all. Love you. See you all next time. And I do love seeing you all again. And remember, your wishes do come true. Bless you all. Have a fantastic week. And thank you for joining me. Shabbat Shalom.